It's Business Discovery Day in Woodbridge. And we have the opportunity to have Mr. Gary Sotomayor from Bayshore Recycling. He's going to talk a little bit about what he does, and I'm going to leave that to him. We also have Councilwoman Debbie Meehan. She's going to talk about a little bit about politics, and she's also going to talk about her newspaper, the Colonial Corner. Okay, so we're going to be a respectful audience. We're going to learn a lot today, and you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of each presenter's talk. So if you have any questions when it's done, raise your hand. I'll come over and you can ask the question. Okay? Let's hear it for our presenter.
Got a mic set up too. Left, right. So just kind of point it. Right advances. Yeah. Okay. And this one? Yeah, they're both. Can I pull out? This one is the camera, and this one is the regular. So use this one. Yeah. Okay. But he needs to hear. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, you do a little better than that. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. That's the energy we want to hear. My name is Gary Sotomayor, and I work for the Bayshore family of companies, right in Woodbridge Township. And I'm going to talk to you this morning about jobs in the environmental field. And I'm going to break it into sort of two pieces. The first piece, I want to talk to you about recycling. How many people here actively recycle? All right. That's good. That's good. That's good. I hope you're excited about it. I'm really excited about recycling. So we're going to talk about recycling through Bayshore. I'm going to show you what we do. And then I have just a few slides at the end to talk about the broader aspects of working in the environmental field. And I first want to compliment Principal Lagunovich and Vice Principal Tabor and the Woodbridge administration and Mayor McCormick for sponsoring a program like this. I'm an old guy. So I'm 62 years old, and when I was a little boy, they didn't have any programs like this. And it's so important, I think, you take a step back. You learn every single day so many great things, right? But what's really, taking that and putting it to practical use is when you put it into what you want to be when you grow up, right, your career. So it's so good to spend time on this subject matter, and I'm really honored to have a chance to speak with you. A few general things I want to say. You're very young. You're 8th graders. You have your whole high school career ahead of you. So don't stress it at all, obviously, about your job in the future. But please think about it. And please talk to people about careers. And in particular, who you're most comfortable with, your parents, your family members, your aunts, your uncles. Do you even know, I'm not asking for an answer, but do you even know what your aunts and uncles do? You know, you might not. But talk to them, because that's how you learn, that's how you develop your interests in what you want to do later. And probably the most important message that I want to give you today is, with very, very limited exception, you can do anything you want to do in the future. You really can. It's a matter of picking what you want to do and then going for it, going after it. And your next 3 years, freshman, sophomore, and junior in high school, is when you really should be thinking. That's stress the word thinking. You don't have to decide anything, but thinking about what you want to do, because that summer, between your junior year in high school and senior year, you want to be a cop. Did that mean I got kicked out already? That's the time you want to be applying to colleges. And obviously you want to pick the kind of college that's going to work for you. And everybody's a little different. So we have 4 kids, and 2 of our daughters went to Villanova University, and they weren't quite sure what they wanted to do. So they applied to be in a sort of a liberal arts school. They went to a liberal arts school in Villanova, and then they picked science. And one works for the California Epidemiological Intelligence Service, and she does cutting-edge research on infectious disease, and she got her master's degrees from Cal Berkeley. Another daughter knew when she was a little girl she wanted to be a nurse. So she applied to Drexel University that had a very targeted nursing program, and she went there for 5 years. She did internships. It was an internship program. And when she came out, she went right to work immediately in an $80,000 per year job, working for the best neonatal hospital in the world, arguably Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So I say that as sort of examples. If you know what you want to do, there's a certain set of colleges you might want to look at. If you don't know, which is perfectly fine, you might want a liberal arts school. Okay, I'm going to jump in and talk about jobs in the recycling field. Think about, if I ask you a question, how many jobs do you think there are in New Jersey in recycling? I don't know what your answer would be, but I'll tell you the answer. 30,000. 30,000 people in the state of New Jersey have full-time jobs working in recycling. If you look nationally, there are just about 800,000 people who are employed in recycling. So it is a field, it is a discipline, and an important one. Bayshore, we're actually owned by husband and wife, Valerie and Frank Montecalvo. Frank grew up in Woodbridge. After he graduated high school, he was not a college guy. He didn't want to go to college, so he bought a dump truck, and he started doing contracting work, and he helped put in water lines and sewer lines and build roads. And he met Valerie, who became his bookkeeper. Valerie was not a college person either. And they fell in love, they got married. And what they developed is the largest recycling company in the entire Northeast. So, like I said before, you can do anything you want to do. They started out with one little truck, and now they own the largest recycling facility, one of the largest in the entire country. Okay? Did it? Oh, what? All right, so we know recycling, we think of reduce, reuse, recycle, right? The 3 R's. And when I say the word recycling, kind of what do you think about? And I think the answer of what you probably think about is cleaning out bottles and cans at home, putting them in a container, bringing them out to the curb, and it goes away. And that's a very simple thing. Recycling is actually an extraordinary, complicated industry. And the real vision of what the recycling world is this, the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Because every one of those materials that you put out at the curb, right, you put out aluminum cans, plastic bottles, cardboard, paper, they're all commodities. And commodities are bought and sold every day on the New York Stock Exchange. So we have people, in terms of jobs, I'm going to focus my discussion very predominantly on the types of jobs that exist. We have people that do nothing all day that look for places to sell the materials that we get from your households. And we do make sure it does accept all the curbside material from Woodbridge Township. So it's a very, very complicated business recycling. Have you seen this before? This symbol, right? You've all seen this. It actually means something, and it's probably on that blue container back there. I think I can see it. So I want you, every time you see that symbol of those 3, they're called the chasing arrows, that they do mean something. You all participate in the first part. The first arrow is actually collection. So when you clean out stuff, you put it in the curb, and the truck comes and gets it. That's the collection piece of it. The second arrow is processing. Bayshore is an enormous processor. We take over 10,000 tons a day of material, which is an enormous amount of stuff. And what we basically do is we take apart everything that you put out at the curb, so that we can sell it as a commodity in the marketplace. The third arrow is the marketing piece. And you have to have all 3 to have recycling. You have to collect it, you have to process it to get it ready to be made into new aluminum cans, new plastic containers, new cardboard boxes. Then you have to have somebody that's willing to buy that material to do exactly that. Why am I having trouble? Is it me? Okay, so what can we recycle? We can recycle almost everything. And part of today, and another reason I wanted to sort of go through what we do at Bayshore is to change your views on what we recycle. So just in the stuff that we do in the town, the stuff that you put at the curb, we recycle cans, bottles, steel cans, all types of plastics, right? Water bottles, milk jugs, newspaper, cardboard, used motor oil. If your mom and dad change the oil themselves, they can take that oil to the Woodbridge DPW and drop it off, and that stuff gets made into new oil. It gets re-refined into new oil. Clothing. I think I saw where I parked today, you had a box, right? A metal box, you put your clothes in there. That goes to places that process that cloth. And about 30% of the clothing you put in there gets used by people. What doesn't get used by people gets chopped up and used to make new cloth material or used as rags. So all that stuff does get used. Mixed paper, magazines, junk mail, organic material, leaves, brush. I understand Woodbridge has one of the first in the state food waste programs. We just separate your lunch stuff and put it in there, and it goes to make compost, which is used as a fertilizer. So that's very cool. Big stuff in your house: washers, dryers, refrigerators, called white goods, and then really big stuff, and that's what Bayshore specializes in: concrete and asphalt, brick and block, rechargeable batteries, and tires. So this is the list of materials that are actually mandated by law to be recycled in the state of New Jersey, because recycling is mandatory, and New Jersey was the first state in the country to make recycling mandatory. All right, that was the Bayshore site. I went too fast. Here it is. And we're right, if you go over the Parkway Bridge over the Raritan River, if you look to the right, next time you go by there, you'll see a big white water tower. It says Bayshore. That's where we are. We have 58 acres, and we run 9 different recycling businesses on that property. And the Woodbridge Department of Public Works is located right here. Yeah, I'm just going to look to you, I think. Okay, so what do we recycle primarily? Some of this may surprise you. We recycle buildings, roads, parking lots, and bridges as one of the core things we do in our business. And what we do is we take the old building, and can we just go through those quick? Buildings, go ahead, roads, parking lots, bridges. And what we do, so let's pretend that this is a building that was in downtown Woodbridge. And that building gets knocked down, and the material gets put in trucks, and they drive it to Bayshore, and it kind of looks like this. And then through heavy equipment, we take that material and we put it through a very simple device called a crusher. And the crusher will take those concrete blocks and so forth and make them into uniform-sized pieces. And when it comes out, it looks like this. And the size of the rock or the stone is a function of how many times you put it through that crusher. And what we really are is a manufacturer. And what we're manufacturing is stone that goes into making roads. So when you see a road, what do you see? You see the top, right? You see the asphalt. But underneath every road, if you ever see a road being built, but try to take a look at it, it's interesting. You have different layers of different size stone that help make that road strong. If you just put asphalt on dirt, it'd be gone in a month. So you have to have all these other materials under there to keep that road strong, so you don't have to repair it all the time. So what we do, and as a business, we get paid to take that old building that got knocked down at Woodbridge. We do very simple processing. That machine is a very simple machine, and it doesn't take all that many people. And then we manufacture these stones that we sell. So we get paid on the incoming, we get paid on the outgoing, and that's a very good business model. Please. The second business that we do, which is actually our largest business, is, ready for this? We run a low temperature thermal desorption unit for non-hazardous petroleum contaminated soil. Took me a long time to say it that fast. So what is that? It's actually a dirty dirt cooker. So next slide, please. So at places like gas stations, when you go up to get gas, this is what you see, right? But under the ground is where all the gas really is. It's in large containers. And unfortunately, when we first put those containers in many years ago, they rotted and they all leak. And when they leak, the soil gets contaminated. So it's not like a hazardous waste, it's not like awful, but it's dirty. So you have to clean it. And we have utilities, we have lights on because we have public service, electric and gas, that provides those services. And anytime they put in a new power line or a natural gas line, that soil is a little bit dirty and they want to clean. So they bring it to Bayshore. We take an enormous 6,300 tons a day of contaminated soil, and it comes in looking like this, please. And then we screen it, put it through a screener, next. And this is the thing with the long name. This is the dirty dirt cooker. It's the low temperature thermal desorption unit. It's a rotary kiln, so the dirt gets put into this thing, which turns. And believe it or not, low temperature is about 975 degrees. So it's still very, very hot. High temperature systems are like 4,000 degrees. And they turn everything into like glass. So this is low temperature. And we cook the soil. And when it's done, there's nothing in it. It's inert. And then we use that soil for landfill cover, for cleaning up sites like at Woodbridge. You have a very large natural gas power plant that was built just a few years ago by Competitive Power Ventures, and that was an old contaminated site. And Bayshore sent them literally a mountain of this kind of material to stabilize that site so they could build a very clean 700 megawatt natural gas power plant. So very cool. So in this case, the type of workers we have laborers who help keep all the equipment running. We have a mechanical engineer who actually has the credentials to run the plant, because you have to run it at certain temperatures for certain periods of time and look at emissions, right? You don't want emissions to be caused by the burning of material. We have other people who are technically trained to be plant operators. We have people who do testing of all the soil, because we have to be very careful that we only take soil that we're allowed to take. So all the soil has to go to a laboratory and be tested. So there's another sort of piece of employment and of jobs that we have in this area. We run a good old-fashioned scrap metal business, which I'm going to talk about. And this one's pretty cool. We actually also recycle entire houses. So when you knock down a house, it, again, goes in a container that might be in your driveway. So let's say, as an example, your mom and dad want to fix up your house. They take off the roof, they take down the deck, they clean out the attic, the basement, the garage. All that stuff comes to a place like Bayshore, and we take it back apart. It comes in, it kind of looks like this. Looks like a mess, but there's no garbage or food waste or anything like that in there. And we run it through a bunch of machines that separate it into different sizes. Go ahead, please. Oh, yeah, there's the house. Go ahead. And then people, so these are lower paying jobs, but they're still jobs. We have 35, 40 people who sort the material on a processing line, and they separate the wood from the plastic, from the cardboard, and everything else, and then all that material gets sent out to markets. And the wood, we actually send to a facility, the clean wood, that makes landscape mulch. So we hear the term used often of sustainability, right? You all heard that term. This is a very sustainable business where it could have been your house, it gets knocked down, it comes to Bayshore, or pieces of it, like the roof. And then in the springtime, that same material might come back to your landscape beds as your landscape mulch. And we also send material to a paper mill that makes paper. So you might come home from school with your notebook from paper made through processing material that comes from Bayshore. Okay. Next one, please. The curbside facility that takes all the stuff that you put out, you probably help bring the material to the curb. I noticed today is Woodbridge Recycling Day in Columbia, and our buyers blue cans in front of every house. It's very cool. All that stuff does come to Bayshore and we process it. And the entire process is through machines today. So from the front of the building to the back are different machines to separate out everything that you mix together. So next one, please. So here you can see what comes off the processing line. So it's the same kind of thing. Picture the stuff that you put at the curb. It's put in a truck from all your neighbors. It comes to Bayshore. It gets tipped in a big area that's called a tipping floor. And it kind of looks like a mess. And then you just put it on a conveyor belt, and it goes through a process where machines and people separate everything out. And these systems are really cool because they're very sophisticated today. So there's a station up front that has, it's called a star screen, and when cardboard goes on it, it pops the cardboard up and it kind of surfs, and it goes off in a separate direction where only the cardboard goes. There's a separate system that just takes the paper. There are magnets that'll grab the cans, the metallic cans that come through. There are air separators called heavy current separators. There's even robots, and the robots that are so sophisticated that they can tell the difference instantaneously between a water bottle, that some of you, there's some right here, and the milk jug, because they're different types of plastic. The first one is polyethylene terephthalate, that's a water bottle. And then a milk jug is a high-density polyethylene. And these robots and optical scanners can tell the difference so quick that it pushes a different stream of air at it. And the water bottle goes in one direction, the milk jug goes in another direction. It's amazing. It's amazing, the technology today. Please. Here's the screen for the cardboard that separates out the cardboard. Please. So what happens is at the end of the system, these enormous blue bunkers each have a different material. So this is a bunker here that's discharging water and salt bottles. And that will all come out and go into a baler. And the baler squeezes that material together. And then you can load it into a truck and bring it to a market that will take that plastic and then they melt it. And it goes through a machine, it's called an extruder, and then it gets molded into new water bottles. So that's, remember the 3 arrows, right, that go around? You got it, we processed it here at Bayshore, then the market makes it into new water bottles, new laundry detergent, new soda containers, and 2-liter bottles, whatever. Here's, believe it or not, these are tens of thousands of aluminum cans, all crushed together. And then those aluminum cans go to a place where it goes into a kind of a hot furnace, and then melt all that aluminum down, and then it goes into the same kind of a thing, a molding thing. And you've probably seen like assembly lines where cans and bottles are being made, and they kind of go down in a row. So it's very cool. It's the essence of recycling. These are all laundry detergent containers that also get recycled in the same way. And here's just another example. We have people working in this facility. We have managers who kind of make sure that everything runs well and are responsible for the whole operation. You saw people on assembly lines that, again, are the lower level paying jobs, but still jobs of people pulling material off. This fella is actually using a forklift, and this is a pallet, and the forklift goes into the pallet, and he loads the trucks to send the material out to the market to make new plastic containers. Next, please. Another thing that Bayshore, something that we're very interested in, because we try to be a sustainable company, and our motto as our company is to try to run 100% green business powered 100% by renewable energy. So our main roof had about 10,000 solar panels, and we would get 40% of the energy we need to run that dirty dirt cooker. And just this past year, we put another 1,500 panels on another building to try to be as sustainable as we can with energy. And you should know that the state of New Jersey is probably the second or third most progressive state in the country behind California in solar panels. So I know Woodbridge Township has done a great deal with solar panel installations as well. All right, go ahead, please. You can see them on the roof. Next, please. And when we're done, this is what we're trying to develop at Bayshore. So you saw the earlier picture with all the piles and everything else. What we want to be when we're completed is an eco-complex and an energy campus. Again, all green businesses powered 100% by renewable energy, where you have all the buildings with solar panels. I mentioned to you that when we recycle houses, we have a lot of wood, and that wood goes to become landscape mulch. We actually would like to develop a facility that's got a fancy name, a biomass gasification system, where you can take anything that you can't send to a market from the other recycling operations and stuff like the wood and create energy. And through rooftop solar and biomass gasification, we want to run all of our operations in a sustainable way. And we work very closely right next door with Woodbridge Township and their Department of Public Works. We also take material by barge and by train, because they're the most sustainable ways to move material. Okay. Next, please. Okay, that kind of summarizes Bayshore. And later, please, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. So when we get to that point, please don't be shy and ask me questions. I want to talk for just the next few minutes about jobs in the environmental field. So I didn't really tell you my background. I grew up in the heart of the city, in Paterson, New Jersey, in a tenement building on the corner of Main and Grand. And that was very interesting. There were no trees. Growing up, I don't remember there being a single tree. And the only grass that I remember even seeing as a little kid was a very small piece of grass about from here to those tables that was in front of the Passaic County Jail, which was a half block away. So from that experience, it's kind of interesting. I think a lot of times, they have that phrase or that saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. A lot of times we like and are interested in things that we don't have. So I didn't grow up in a lush natural environment with trees and flowers and grass. And so I was always very interested in that. And then my primary interest in my career was in high school. I had heard the term hippie. I kind of had a hippie science teacher in biology my sophomore year who talked about a new organization that was just created in the state's capital in Trenton that was going to save the environment of New Jersey, called the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. So I was very inspired. I said, that's what I want to do. I want to work for the State Department of Environmental Protection. That was the first person ever in the history of my family to have the honor and the privilege to go to college. I was very blessed to go to Rutgers University, where I have an undergraduate degree in environmental planning and design. And I went further to get a master's degree in environmental planning. And then my dream came true. I got to apply out of college. I got to work for the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. I worked there for 30 years. I started at the entry level, like everybody else, and I was very blessed to work my way up every level of the organization. And for 10 years, I was the chief of staff of the DEP, which is the number 2 person under 6 different New Jersey governors. So I got to do some really cool public policy work on writing laws and regulations, stuff like that. What's neat about the DEP, and again, my theme is jobs in the environmental field, is we kind of dealt with all aspects of the environment, and the environmental field is huge. It's enormous. So I just want to give you some examples to have you sort of thinking about what is the environmental field. So to make it simple, we kind of had a clean end of DEP, and we kind of had a dirty end of DEP. So on the clean end, we ran 40 state parks. So if you've ever been to Liberty State Park or Island Beach State Park, there are state parks that we ran. So in terms of jobs, for every one of those parks, we had park rangers, we had an entire police force, we had a parks police force, and these are sworn law enforcement officers that work for us. We ran 2 trout hatcheries. So if you're a fisherman and if you like to fish, and you hear about a lake or a pond being stocked with fish, we grew the fish. So we actually grow the fish, and we collect the little tadpoles and little fry, and we would bring them to lakes and ponds all around the state and stock it for fishing and to make the pond or the lake healthy. So we had people who did that kind of activity. We like to, in New Jersey, preserve land. So we have a Green Acres program and a Blue Acres program where we preserve land so people can't build on it. And we have people that their career is knowing real estate and how to buy and sell land. So very diverse type of jobs that we did. Believe it or not, there are 1,800 dams in the state of New Jersey, and we had a whole group of engineers who knew how to design the dams to make sure they were safe. We have an entire marina fleet of people who work in marine police who would go out and would monitor waterways to make sure people weren't doing stupid things. On the dirty end of the house, you have to get permits for anything that burns. So there are air permits. If you're going to discharge anything to the water, there are water permits. For cleaning up hazardous waste sites, for recycling. There's a whole division of recycling at the state. So all these were jobs. So these are the categories, and I really do want to challenge you again. Shouldn't be overly worried about what your job is going to be or what you want to do, but you should understand where you can work. And if you're interested in the environmental field, there are basically 3 type of areas you can work. You can work in government. We'll talk a little bit more about it. You can work in the private sector, like companies like a Bayshore, or you can work for a nonprofit organization that tries to do good things for the environment. So in government, there are multiple layers. You can work for the federal government. So in the environmental field, we have a Federal Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, which you probably have heard of before. And they have regional offices all around the country. They have, I think it's 12 different regions, one of which is New York City. So New York City is responsible for New Jersey, New York, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. There's also a Philadelphia region that would cover Pennsylvania. State government, I mentioned DEP, working for state DEP. When I was first chief of staff at DEP, I had 4,000 people working under me in DEP. So it's a big employer, a lot of really good jobs. County government, like Middlesex, has jobs. In the recycling end, there's a county recycling coordinator. There's a coordinator for litter. That's called Clean Communities, or litter coordinator. And very good jobs at the county level. At the town level, at Woodbridge Township, Carolyn Ehrlich was here earlier, who was the chief of staff for Mayor McCormick in Woodbridge. She helps lead the workforce for the town of Woodbridge, and they do a lot of tremendous things. And I want to tell you something. I don't want to get too far off track, but there's a volunteer program in the state called Sustainable New Jersey that towns can participate. And your town is the most environmental town in the state of New Jersey, Woodbridge Township. Championed every year for all the great things that Woodbridge Township does. So it's very cool. Government schools. I don't know if any of you have interest in being a school teacher. I think teaching is off the charts, amazing thing. As I mentioned to you, the biggest inspiration of my life, the most important people were, I had a state teacher for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and a high school teacher. So you could really change people's lives in what you do as a teacher. I think it's a tremendous field. And there are also a lot of jobs, and something you might not know about yet, called authorities. And they're kind of part of government, but they run separately, as separate entities. So if you've ever driven on the New Jersey Turnpike, there's a whole group of people who work for the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. Another example, if you ever have gone to New York City, which I'm sure you've had, you cross the George Washington Bridge or the Goethals Bridge or any other bridges. Those bridges are controlled by an organization called the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. So that's at the government level. In the private sector, there's kind of two different types of work in the environmental field. The first is corporate, and that would be working for a big company or a small company. So New Jersey is actually the center of pharmaceutical manufacturing in the country. So we have all the big pharmaceutical companies. You've probably heard of some of them. The biggest one locally is Johnson & Johnson. Also Merck, Pfizer, there's a whole bunch of them. And they're very good jobs to work in the corporate sector in private companies. The other side is environmental consulting, and that's one of the biggest areas you can work, because all those government agencies need experts to help them, and that's what environmental consultants do. And that's a very, very good way to begin a career in the environment. And the last one I'll mention is nonprofit organizations, and they're advocacy groups. They're groups that try to champion causes for the environment. So you may have heard of the Audubon Association. You know, John J. Audubon was a great artist. He painted birds. And that became an organization to try to protect wildlife and birds around the world. There's another one called the Nature Conservancy, and it's actually the largest landholding group in the world. And our owner, Valerie Montecalvo, is part of the board of directors of the Nature Conservancy. There's many, many more. So there are categories of where you can work. The types of jobs, there's office jobs and field jobs. That's something that I really hope you'll think about. Like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Do you want to work in an office? Do you want to sit behind a desk? Do you want to stand up and teach? Do you want to be out in the field, working in the field every day? And I just wanted to mention the types of jobs in the environmental field that exist in each. In the office, I mentioned for anything you want to do, you need a permit, you need an approval. So there are people who are permit writers. There are people that review very detailed chemistry and analytical results to clean up contaminated sites. So there are site cleanup managers. There are administrative assistants who are people who help out with administrative jobs like filing and different computer applications. There are people that sell or market. There are marketing and salespeople and communications people. And Sophia Councilwoman Bean is going to talk about her experience in owning and running a newspaper, which is a communications kind of a function. And that's a whole separate curriculum that you go into in college to become somebody working in marketing or sales or graphics and communication. There are scientific experts. There are biologists. I mentioned my work at DEP as one example. We had a team of biologists that were very interested in a certain bird species called the red knot, and they would follow the migrations of that bird and travel to the tip of South America, Tierra del Fuego, and these little birds would fly all the way up to Antarctica every year, believe it or not. And they would actually go to Antarctica and they would observe these bird species, because they would, on halfway point, they would come to New Jersey and eat at the Delaware Bay before they finished their flight. So being a biologist can be very exciting. It's not, that's the point you want to make. You can travel, do some really good things. You can be like myself, a planner, and I'm an environmental planner. So I'm trained in all the different types of, I call them the ologies: biology, chemistry, geology, dendrology, ecology. You're trained a little bit in everything, but you're not a specialist. And that's my background. We have people who are scientists, research scientists, computer specialists. Very important today is being safe. So there's a whole world in the curriculum of being an occupational health and safety expert, where you go into facilities and you make sure that they're operating in a safe way for themselves and for the company. Jobs out in the field. When you run any kind of an operation in the environmental field, you have a permit, you have people that come out to check to make sure you're not cheating or doing something wrong. And they're called field inspectors, compliance inspectors. I mentioned kind of what a field biologist does. We have people that travel around and collect samples. They collect water samples and send them to a laboratory to kind of check on how clean the water body is. At Bayshore in particular, I showed we have a lot of dirt piles, right? We deal with all that soil. We have people who went to school to learn how to be a heavy equipment operator. The people that pick material off those processing lines, we call day laborers, and then the trades. And certainly another point I want to make, you absolutely don't have to go to college. You should do what you're interested in doing. And the trades today are a really good direction to go for jobs, because we don't have enough people going into being an electrician, a plumber, a mechanic. And these fields are very sophisticated today, in particular mechanics. Back when I was a little kid, most people did their own mechanic work. Today, everything on a car is computerized. And you have to get an advanced certification or a degree in how to be a car mechanic. So it's a good field to pursue. We have people who are experts on the computer who do mapping. And I would think that in what you do here at the Colonial Middle, you probably are on a computer doing a lot of neat stuff with mapping, right? You go to Google Earth, you can zoom in on anything. We do really important geographic information system mapping today that's very, very helpful in protecting the environment. I already mentioned carpets. Okay, last slide. I just want to end by talking to you and give you my opinions on what you need for your future and for your career in terms of pursuing jobs. So the credentials you need, I'm going to break this into college, which loosely often is called white-collar jobs or vocational or more blue-collar jobs. For college, one area of great employment is being an engineer. And there are all types of engineers. Just a few of them are civil engineers, which would design stuff like bridges and so forth. Mechanical engineers who look at design of mechanical systems. We had environmental engineers at DEP, which understand how equipment would work, let's say, at a mass burn incineration facility or something like that. Chemical engineers, nuclear engineers. We have a guy a young man who graduated yesterday from Stevens Institute of Technology up in Hoboken, who was an intern at Bayshore for a few years, and he just got a job as a civilian with the United States Coast Guard, and he's going to be a nuclear engineer. So a really, really cool career for him, and he did all his intern work at Bayshore. Another great degree, if you have any interest in the environment, is environmental science. That's kind of a generalist degree. And with that degree, you can work in any of the places I mentioned to you, in government, private consulting, or in the corporate world. Environmental planning, which is what I do, is more of a training generalist. If you want to be an attorney, a great field is being a lawyer. And there's a whole body of law, which is nothing but environmental law. So you can go to school to get what you need to do to go on to become an attorney. And I already mentioned all the ologies. You can study biology, hydrology, the study of trees, ecology, oceanography if you're interested in the ocean. All of these fields have lots and lots of jobs in different places. I mentioned kind of on the vocational end, a very good way to go in the future, because we don't have enough people in these fields: mechanics, electricians, heavy equipment operators, plumbers, carpenters, computer technicians. All right, finally, because I've had really great jobs, and I've had as many as 4,000 people working for me at any point in time, I've hired a ton of people, or fired a lot of people, unfortunately, that's always the sad part. But these are the skills that I think are most important, because a lot of times we focus on the technical part, and we don't pay enough attention, in my opinion, to the core skills. Please learn how to write. Please become a good writer. And Councilman Meehan can certainly speak to that, because it's critically important to be able to write and write well. I can't tell you how many PhDs I have, people with the highest degrees that you can get in your field, who couldn't write a sentence. They got all caught up in the technical wording and the jargon, and they were not effective communicators, and they would be very frustrated. Learn to write well. Please learn, depending on what you want to do. If you want to do anything in a professional job, like an engineer or an attorney or a planner, learn how to stand up and do what I'm doing today and learn how to speak publicly. When I was your age, I was petrified of even answering a question in class. But I knew that in my career, the things I wanted to do, that I'd have to get up and learn how to speak. So I actually took a class at Rutgers. Most classes you get 3 credits for it. This was a double credit course. It was a 6-credit class in presentation techniques, how to get up and do presentations. And whether I'm good at it or not is up to you, but I can tell you that I'm comfortable doing it, and that's half the battle, is being comfortable and getting up and doing it. Any one of you, every single one of you can be an effective public speaker. It's kind of like when you look at riding a bike when you're a little kid, it's petrifying, right? But then you get on the bike and you do it like that. It's easy. It's the same thing. People aren't born natural public speakers. You learn by doing it. You learn from experience. So do not be afraid, please, of being a public speaker, and please think about doing that. Your organizational skills are really important. You know, like, do you want to work with a slob, just to put it out there? No, right? So how you organize yourself, being able to find things, being able to file things is important. And please work on those core skills. Today, fascinating. I'm so old that computers didn't exist when I was your age. They just didn't exist. Today, everything's on a computer. Everything's on our phone, right? So please learn as many computer systems as you can. The obvious ones are Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, but there are so many more. I'm sure in your generation will be countless advances. Please stay up with it. It's very important. Learn how to appropriately use social media. It is such an important vehicle today. You folks are light years ahead of my generation on how to do that. You grew up with it. You're great at it. But effectively using, in particular, sales, communications, fields like that, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, are very important. So please learn how to use them well. I can't stress to you how important it is to try to have a positive attitude. And that's a tough one because some of us aren't born with a positive attitude. One of our kids, our son, is kind of like a Eeyore guy, that's always like looking at the bird who's falling. But when he needs to, he can put on a positive face. And I can't tell you how important it is. If you're interviewing somebody, if you want somebody who's complaining and moaning, you want somebody who has a positive attitude, that wants to work, wants to get things done. Very important. Your work ethic, you need to work. And it's important to have a strong work ethic and to be a good worker, because unless you win the lottery or you're from a really rich family, you're going to be working a really long time. And your work ethic is important. Working as a team, your people skills, critical. How many people here are involved in sports or in music or in dance or in theater? Right, just about everybody. You're already working in a team. And I'll tell you what, it is no different when you go out to work. You're always going to be working in some form of a team, and it's very important that you have the people skills and the positive attitude to work as a team to get things done, because that's, no matter what you do, that's what work is about, and always maintaining respect for others. So let me just close. Thank you for your attention this morning, and please don't fear work. Work is a really good thing. And it sometimes gets a bad rap. You're like, oh, I've got to go to work. Well, I can't wait to get up in the morning and go to work, because I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And if you pick the right field, if you pick something that you care about and you're into, you're going to love it too. You do it for a really, really long time. So no pressure. Please think about careers, and remember, you can do anything that you want to do. Thank you. Let me ask, anybody have questions? And please don't be shy. Anybody? Nobody wants to go first. I know that. Yeah, good. Thank you.
I have a microphone.
I'm going to need help.
Who had a question? How much do you get paid?
That's a good question. I'm not allowed to tell you. I'll tell you, you know what? I'll tell you Because that you don't do in the private sector, you really don't. But I'll tell you what I made in the public sector, because that actually gets published, believe it or not, in a book every year. And I'll tell you, when I started in 1979, I made $12,300 a year. When I left DEP, and I was at the very top, I was the number 2 person, I made $127,500. So that'll give you like a range. In the private sector, you do better. I'm really glad you asked that question because I really should have mentioned that. Like I mentioned the categories of work, and they're different in a lot of ways. And one of them is what you get paid. And something that we really all need to be thinking about is how important is that to you, right? So like growing up, I mentioned I grew up in Patterson and loved the environmental field. I couldn't care less, to be honest with you, how much I got paid. It just wasn't important to me. So I really loved working in government. People in nonprofit, like the Sierra Club, I mentioned a couple others, the Nature Conservancy, they don't make a lot of money. That's like the lowest pay scale. The place, if the money is important to you, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't want to get that impression. Is private sector, like the corporate jobs. And like at Bayshore, I make considerably more than what I made in government, I'll tell you that much. But people don't talk about what they make in the private sector. They just don't, you know. But that can give you a range, at least. Yeah. Okay, other questions, please.
What is special pickup?
What is special pickup? So like your normal pickup would be like residential pickup, the stuff you put out every day. Special pickup is usually big stuff. So like bulky waste. So if you needed to like you clean out your basement, let's say, and you got a big couch, you have an old washing machine, something like that, special pickup. And a lot of towns like Woodbridge, you have to give them a call and say, you know, I got this stuff, can you come and get it? I happen to live in a town where they actually pick that stuff up every Thursday. And it's pretty amazing, but that's rare. So that's really what it is, and it is confusing. It is confusing. Good question. Anybody else? There is no such thing as a bad question, so please, help yourself. So you're saying there are bad questions? We have to screen it first.
Is this thing working? Okay, how long should it take to get those solar painting thingies up? Solar panels, sorry.
Help me here.
How long will it take to get the solar?
How long did it take?
Yeah.
Was that the question? It doesn't take long. So what happens is nobody has to come out and look at your roof very carefully to make sure that the roof is strong enough to hold all those solar panels that you put on it. And then after that, it's pretty quick to put them on. So from design to inspection to actual installation, you can do, you know, a big building in less than 6 months. You probably can do it within 3 months.
I got a question for about the environmentalism. So whenever there's so it's like about like the recycling, right? So whenever there's like a lot of stuff that's on the ground, do you encourage like people to probably like that. Like there's always papers and cans all over the ground.
Yep.
People
Litter.
sometimes aren't always picking them up.
Yeah, litter, right?
So do you encourage people to like help maybe change, like stop all the trash that's in the ground?
Yep, that's a great question. So the question was, if you didn't hear it properly, what about litter? Is there anything that addresses litter? And there certainly is. So going back 30 years ago, we had litter everywhere. It was really, really a mess. And the state created a program which is really interesting. They put a tax on the companies that sell things that become litter. So it's called the Litter Producing Industries. And so it's a very, very small tax. It's like 0.0003 of a penny of everything that a company sells has to go into a general fund. So the type of companies would be cigarette makers, soda company, you see a lot of cans like you're saying. So Coke and Pepsi would have to pay that. Alcohol, beer companies, wine makers, and all that money goes into a fund called the state's Clean Community Fund. And that fund generates somewhere around $25 million every year. And then that money gets sent back to each town in the state, and each town has a person whose job it is to fight litter. And they're called the Clean Communities Coordinator. And they put together stuff like maybe on Earth Day or Earth Week, you may have participated in a litter cleanup. That's the kind of stuff that they do. And they deal with trying to clean up litter all year long. Because you're right, but I have to tell you, being old as I am, it's so much better now than it was before. So litter is less of a problem, but there's still a really big government program to address it. Good question.
Is there a program that, is there a program that pays people to install solar panels on their homes or no?
To put solar panels on? Yes, there is. That's a great question. So a lot of programs in the environment, when it's something that government believes in and thinks is a good thing, there'll be what's called an incentive program. So there's a very small government agency called the Board of Public Utilities, and their job is to administer all those kind of programs. So there absolutely is a rebate program to put solar panels on your house, and it's really cool. People that do that stuff, all you got to do is tell them where you live, and they can use Google Maps, and they can zoom in on your house. And what's important is you need a southwest exposure, which means that your roof needs to face the sun. Because if it's like on the wrong end, like if your roof is configured so it's not facing the sun, you're not going to do well. So they can like almost over the phone tell you whether your house is a good candidate or not for solar panels. And then you're absolutely right. There's incentive money where you can get the solar panels at a tremendous discount. I saw an article just yesterday. One of the companies was saying for the first year you paid nothing at all to put the solar panels on. And I'm told that the payback for putting them on, like in 7-8 years or so, it pays for itself. And you've already paid for the system. So it's a really good investment if you have the right exposure. Great question.
Does it smell in your work area or no?
Does it
all that
smell?
trash, yeah.
Does it smell? So there's a big difference. Like what smells is organic stuff that rots. So if you think about it, if you put your nose in your garbage can at home in the garage, right, what stinks? It's the food waste, right? It's the food and any other organic matter. Like, I don't know if you've ever smelled grass. If you put it in a container after a while, oh man, it'll like make your nose hair fall out. It's unbelievable. We don't take anything organic, nothing at all. So we really don't smell. I mean, I'll be honest with you, we take all the stuff that people put at the curb, and technically people are supposed to wash out, to be honest, the soda bottles, the beer bottles, the wine, they don't. You know, so we get a little bit of odor from that, but by and large, the dirt that comes in doesn't smell, the buildings we bring in don't smell, so for the large part, not a problem. Now, the county has a landfill, right, and they take all that food waste, it's called garbage, right, the general stuff put out is called garbage. They've had some problems recently with odors that were pretty severe, maybe that's why you're asking the question. That we don't take anything like that, so we don't have odor problems. Our biggest problem is blood, because we deal with so much building material and dirt that a lot of times the trucks bring blood around. So that's our thing we have to tackle all the time. But other questions, please. There's a couple in the back, we still have time.
How do you guys make the fish? When you say growing fish.
It's really, it's literally a breeding process, right, for fish, and then you collect them and keep them in tanks. So when you walk in, the whole place is like nothing but tanks, And what you're doing is you're helping the little, they're called fry, they're little tiny fish. You're helping them get big enough and strong enough in a controlled environment before you like literally put them in a truck and you drive them to a lake and you dump them in. So they're nice and strong, you know, they're going to survive, they're going to adapt to that new environment. So it really is, it's called a trout hatchery, and that's what you're doing. You're hatching trout from eggs from a mother, and then you're giving them a secure environment before you put them out so people can fish.
Last question.
Sorry. Okay, so my question is about the shopping bags, because there's a law about how you can't recycle them. And my question is, can you? Because they're a different type of plastic. Can you actually recycle that kind of plastic?
What plastic?
Shopping bag plastic. I was like shopping bags.
Okay. So that's another really good question. It's very low value. So at supermarkets, you'll see most supermarkets will have like a box where you're going into the supermarket and you can put that stuff in. It does get recycled, but very low value. So, and I thank you, because it helps me make another point. I don't want you to think like all the recycling, I mentioned they're commodities, they're all individual commodities, that they're all really valuable, because they're not. Right, stuff like aluminum is very valuable, cardboard's valuable. Stuff like that mixed low plastic is not. And frankly, I do a lot of work at the state level with legislation, even working for Bayshore. And we have a couple of laws that are out to ban those plastics, so that will no longer be in our environment. Because the problem is that kind of plastic gets out into the environment, particularly in the water, in the marine environment, causes real problems with fish and with wildlife. And a whole area that your generation is going to learn an awful lot more about is microplastics in the environment. Because what happens with plastic is it breaks down. So like when you look, you don't see like litter of plastic, but it's in the water. And it's in almost all fish today. And it's actually in all of our bodies. So we have plastics in our body. I just helped organize a conference with Rutgers on microplastics in the environment. We had about 200 scientists get together to talk about basically your question, you know, what should we be doing with plastic? And the science still isn't out. It takes a long time to figure out if something affects our body, but we know that plastics are in our body. And we do know that we should stop using as many plastics as we can. Some plastics are really helpful, they're very valuable, but others like this film plastic, we don't need it. We just got, my wife and I, we're old, so we're traveling, so we're just in Europe. And you don't see any of those bags. None. People bring a bag to go shopping. Can't we do that? You know, we give them out at Bayshore free at every event we go to. You know, a nice like shopping bag thing made from 100% recycled content plastic. So we're recycling the plastic. You bring the bags, and you don't even generate that stuff. We don't need it. A lot of towns in New Jersey, particularly on the Jersey Shore, have already, through their town ordinance, banned the sale of those bags, straws, and single-use containers like styrofoam. Like when you go to get takeout food, they put in all that styrofoam, and you like walk 20 feet and throw it in the garbage can to ban that stuff completely. So we're going in a good direction. Great question. Sir, I think I'm out of time. Sir.
Yeah, I think that's all the time we have for Mr. Sotomayor. Can we give him a round of applause, please? Thank you very much. I think we called him a lot today. But the program is not over. We have Mrs. Meehan, Councilwoman Meehan. She's going to speak with you now, so let's have a round of applause for Ms. Meehan. All right, let's settle down now, guys. Show Ms. Meehan the exact same respect that you showed Mr. Sotomayor.
I'm going to talk from down here. I feel a little more comfortable. Can you guys see me? Okay. You all right? So my name is Debbie Meehan, and it's great to be back at Colonial Middle School. All three of my children have gone here, and I see a lot of familiar faces here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do, and then since you guys like to ask questions, I'm going to let you ask me questions, because I don't have a whole slide presentation, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I do. So first of all, I own the Colonial Corner newspaper. Has anybody ever been in it? So I have two papers. I started my newspaper 17 years ago, and I didn't really know what I was doing. Somebody asked me, I love to write, and somebody asked me if I wanted to take over a newspaper. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't go to college for it, but I figured since I love to write, and that was my passion, I was going to try to do it. So 17 years later, I now have two newspapers that go out through Woodbridge Township. I go in for all 10 towns in Woodbridge, and it's really been a great, successful career for me. What's in the paper, maybe you haven't been in it, but have you seen the paper? It comes into all your homes. So what I put in there, I don't like other newspapers that put a lot of bad news in there. I only put positive news in there. I put things that you're doing here in Colonial Middle School. I put things that are going on in the township, just so you know what's going on. I have a section in there for our hometown heroes, and that's anybody from Woodbridge Township that is serving in our military. So that's something very special to me, that people remember who they are that are serving overseas. So this is how I started it, and the way I make money is I sell advertisements, and they go into the paper, and people pay so that other people can see whatever they're selling, whether they're landscaping, whether they're plumber, anything. So that's how all the information gets out to the town. But anything that goes on, so a lot of my writers too, which is great. I know you guys are really excited because you're a 4-day weekend this weekend, right? You're ready to get out of here. But you guys are heading to the high school next year. Is there anybody here that likes to write? So they have great, great programs in Colonia High School, and one of them is their journalism club. And the students there work for me. They write different stories. They find things out that they really are passionate about and love, and they'll cover those stories in the high school, and then they'll send them to me, and I'll publish them. So it's a pretty cool thing to be published in a newspaper. I get to meet a lot of great people. I get to see a lot of really, really great things. And when I started this paper, I guess about 4 years ago, the mayor, so my other job, which works together with this, is I'm a councilwoman here in Colonia, so I represent the town of Colonia. I'm the middleman that goes back, if there's any problems in Colonia, I go back and I work with the mayor. And I bring your ideas. There's been a lot of great ideas from when I go into the schools and they have ideas, they're bored, they want a coffee shop, they want a hockey rink. I had one young boy that wanted to do a hockey rink over by Charlie Shaughnessy Park. I don't know if any of you play hockey, but it was just his idea, and he came to us and he said, you know, we have nowhere to play hockey, or we have nowhere to skateboard. And all these ideas that you, the younger generation, has, you bring them to us, and a lot of times we can put them into place. So it's a great, great job. I love my job. Every day I wake up, I'm really, really blessed to be able to do it. I know a lot of you have helped me. Once you get to high school, you need volunteer hours. There are a ton of faces here that I know that have done spaghetti dinners for me. I've worked at my Easter events. These are all important things as you guys get older to volunteer your time in the community. It looks good on college applications, and it makes you feel good. I know a lot of you that have come to my spaghetti dinners, you go there for volunteer work and you don't want to leave. And you come back over and over and over because it makes you feel good. So I'm different. I don't have the whole screen presentation, but I'd rather you guys ask me questions about what I do, and I'll explain all the different things I do. Okay. Do I recycle? Of course I recycle.
We have a question here. Do you want to take a question?
Why do they call it the Colonia Corner?
Good question. Actually, it was Colonia Corner. Now we've turned it into the corner. It was about Colonia. It was about the people that live here, all the things that were going on in Colonia. Now it's the corner because now I go throughout the township of Woodbridge.
How did you come up with the idea?
Somebody asked me if I'd like to write, and I just decided that I was going to start a newspaper, and it was great. You don't always have to go to college for different things, so I didn't go to college for it. It's just something that came to me, and I worked very, very hard at it, and I became very successful with it. So it was something that I was driven about, something I love to do.
Were there any difficulties in your career?
Which one? Councilwoman or the paper?
The paper.
The newspaper. Sometimes when I write stories, some of the stories are very difficult. Sometimes they're sad. Sometimes they're hard to write. And then as a councilwoman, there's hard times because I can't help people all the time. So when there's things that go on in the town that need help with, I go and I help. But sometimes I can't always help, so that's difficult.
Part of your job?
My favorite part of the job for the newspaper is that I get to meet a lot of different people. There's a lot of stories that go on, and we don't always know about them because everybody's always listening to the bad stuff, but they don't always see the great stories that go on. So that's probably my favorite. And then for council, I like working with kids. I'm on a task force. It's drug prevention, and that's one of my things that I really, really like to do, is to get the word out to children your age about the dangers of drugs. And so with my position, I have a lot of power to get that word out and to help people. The paper is mailed into your house once a month. And it usually takes a good 2 weeks to put the paper together. Yeah.
How many hours a day do you work?
It depends. So when I'm on deadline and I have, just like when you have to get your homework done, you have to work a little bit longer. So the week before I go to print, I put in maybe 12 to 16-hour days. But then the next week, it's quiet and I can do your stuff.
How much do you get paid?
It depends how hard I work. So if I sell a lot of ads, I make more money. So it always varies.
How's your day? How's your day? All right, settle down. He sincerely wants to know how Councilwoman's day is.
My day's great because I'm here with you guys. And I'm getting ready for a nice long weekend like you guys.
Okay, we have time for a couple more questions.
Do you write picture books?
He asked if you write picture books, but I don't think so.
I've written a couple children's books.
Oh, okay. All right, guys, you need to settle down. Okay, because if you have a good question, we have the opportunity to have an answer, and you need to listen. All right, JP.
All right, so you say you work for writing for the Colonial Corner, right?
Correct.
So considering yourself as a newspaper writer, do you have thoughts on experiencing on how you can work for New York Times or USA Today or?
Well, I've never written for those papers. I've only written for the paper I have here. Is that what you're asking? And a lot of my stories, I don't write them all. They come from people that submit stories. So if any of you ever have a great story you're thinking about and you want to write, and you love to write, and you have nowhere to put it, maybe you write a great paper at school in an English class, send it to me. I'd love to publish stories. If there's a great picture, if there's a great sports story, send it to me. I publish it. Great. Nah, not really.
Is it possible to get a soccer team for all the middle schools?
Is it possible for what?
Yeah, like a soccer team for all the middle school.
Well, we are actually, I'm glad you asked that. That's one of the things we're working on. So as a councilwoman, there are different ideas that I have that I present to the township. And for the past 3 years, we've been trying to get middle school, soccer into the middle schools to build up for high school. You guys want soccer in middle school, but you're all leaving now, right? For high school.
Jonathan's question was great because we have the councilwoman here. He asked a question that really is important. So do you have any questions about our town that Mrs. Meehan could possibly address?
Or ideas. Because your ideas, listen, when you guys grow up, we want you to come back to Colonia, Woodbridge Township. We want you to live here and raise your families here. Certain things that you see in the township you don't like, you have to let us know. Or if you have good ideas. I know there's so many banks and everybody wants something fun, but unfortunately we can't control what comes into the town. So that's why there's so many banks. Trust me, I'd rather have a nice little restaurant or something fun for you guys. What? No, it has nothing to do with the dress code. That's the Board of Education.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Does it get hard to get new ideas on what to write next?
Sometimes it is, but there's so many things that go on that we don't know about, that's why I have different reporters that go out to different places so that I can always have fresh stories. And I have a website too, so I put stuff on there, or Twitter, all that fun stuff you guys like to look at.
Question right behind you. Guys, again, I'm going to ask you to settle down so you can hear the question.
Unfortunately, there's only so much money that can be spent in all the schools, so that's a more expensive program than football. So we have, I think you guys have what, volleyball and soccer? No soccer? Oh no, I'm trying to get you soccer, that's right. Volleyball, what else do you have? Softball, basketball. So it takes money and stuff, but we are trying to get soccer. We are trying to get soccer. Well, once you guys get to high school, you're going to have tons of things to choose from.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Not what we had for breakfast. What? Do you have a question?
Can we get better equipment for like gym and stuff, like for sports and all that?
My job is for the township, so those questions are things that you would ask the Board of Education. But you know, all of your voices matter, and every month there's meetings in the town for the Board of Education, for schools, for township issues. You're always welcome to go there and ask anybody for help. Just lastly, you know, you guys have so much in front of you. There's so much for you to do. Volunteer your time, get involved in the community, write a story, do really good things because your future is so bright. You're going to love high school. There's so much for you to do. Get involved, join a club, run for student council because all those things, when you apply for college, are really, really going to matter. I know it doesn't seem like it does now, but it will.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have a great long weekend.
I'd like to thank both